God says, "And hold firmly to the rope of Allah and all together, and do not become divided. And remember the favor of Allah upon you, when you were enemies, and He brought your hearts together, and you became, by His favor, brothers. And you were on the edge of a pit of the fire, and He saved you from it. Thus does Allah make clear to you His verses, that you may be guided." With these words, I welcome you all to the Eid Meelad Nabi Unity Meelad. Today, let us sit together as Muslims and our denominations. Let us greet each other as one ummah, as brothers and sisters. I encourage you to sit with people you do not know, and when you leave today, make sure you have added someone to your phone list. Let us start the program with the recitation of Quran. Please welcome Sayyid Ahmed Al-Nakali with a loud salawat.
أفضل الأعمال الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير. الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور. الذي خلق 7 سماوات طباقا ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت فارجع البصر هل ترى من فطور ثم ارجع البصر كرتين ينقلب إليك البصر خاسئا وهو حسير. ولقد زينا السماء الدنيا بمصابيح وجعلناها رجوما للشياطين وأعتدنا لهم عذاب السعير. وللذين كفروا بربهم عذاب جهنم وبئس المصير. إذا ألقوا فيها سمعوا لها شهيقا وهي تفور تكاد تميز من الغيظ كلما ألقي فيها فوج سألهم خزنتها ألم يأتكم نذير قالوا بلى قد جاءنا نذير فكذبنا وقلنا ما نزل الله من شيء إن أنتم إلا في ضلال كبير. صدق الله العظيم.
Thank you, brother, for the beautiful recitation. We will now start poetry recitation in the honor of Prophet Muhammad. Alhamdulillah, we have naat reciters from both Shia and Sunni communities. I would like to start by inviting Brother Mansoor Naqvi for an Urdu mankabat. Please welcome him with a loud salawat.
درود بر محمد آل محمد. زہے مقدر حضور حق سے سلام آیا، پیام آیا، جھکاؤ نظریں، بچھاؤ پلکیں، ادب کا اعلیٰ مقام آیا، زہے مقدر. یہ کون سر سے کفن لپیٹے چلا ہے الفت کے راستے پر؟ یہ کون سر سے کفن لپیٹے چلا ہے الفت کے راستے پر؟ فرشتے حیرت سے تک رہے ہیں، یہ کون ذی احترام آیا، زہے مقدر. فضا میں لبیک کی صدائیں زعفرش تارش گونجتی ہیں. فضا میں لبیک کی صدائیں زعفرش تارش گونجتی ہیں. ہر ایک قربان ہو رہا ہے، زباں پہ یہ کس کا نام آیا، زہے مقدر. یہ راہ حق ہے سنبھل کے چلنا، یہاں ہے منزل قدم قدم پر. یہ راہ حق ہے سنبھل کے چلنا، یہاں ہے منزل قدم قدم پر. پہنچنا در پہ تو کہنا آقا سلام لیجے غلام آیا، زہے مقدر. یہ کہنا آقا بہت سے عاشق تڑپتے سے چھوڑ آیا ہوں میں. یہ کہنا آقا بہت سے عاشق تڑپتے سے چھوڑ آیا ہوں میں. بلاوے کے منتظر ہیں لیکن نہ صبح آیا نہ شام آیا، زہے مقدر. دعا جو نکلی تھی دل سے آخر پلٹ کے مقبول ہو کے آئی. دعا थी दिल से आखिर पलट के मकबूल होके आई। वो जज्बा जिसमें तड़प थी सच्ची, वो जज्बा आखिर को काम आया। ज़हे मुक़द्दर हुज़ूरे हक़ से सलाम आया, पयाम आया। झुकाओ नज़रें, बिछाओ पलकें, अदब का आला मक़ाम आया। दुरूद बर मोहम्मद आले मोहम्मद।
Thank you, Brother Mansoor, for the beautiful recitation. Our next Brother Awais, who will recite a Arabic mankabat. Please welcome him with a loud salawat.
اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله. يا إمام الرسل يا سندي، أنت باب الله معتمدي، فبدنياي وآخرتي يا رسول الله خذ بيدي قسما بالنجم حين هوى، ما المعفى والسقيم هوى، فاخلع الكونين عنك سوى حب مولى العرب والعجم. يا إمام الرسل يا سندي، أنت باب الله معتمدي، فبدنياي وآخرتي يا رسول الله خذ بيدي. سيد السادات من مضر، غوث أهل البدو والحضر، صاحب الأحيات والسور، منبوع الأحكام والحكم، قمر طابت سريرته، وسجاياه وسيرته، صفوة الباري وخيرته، عدل أهل الحل والحزم. يا إمام الرسل يا سندي، أنت الله معتمدي، فبدنياي يا رسول الله خذ بيدي ما رأت عين وليس ترى مثل طه في الورى بشرا خير من فوق الثرى أثرا طاهر الأخلاق والشيم يا إمام الرسل يا سندي أنت باب الله معتمدي فبدنياي وآخرتي يا رسول الله خذ بيدي اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله.
Thank you, Brother Owais. Our next reciter is Brother Rifat, who will recite in Urdu Naat. Please welcome him with a loud salawat.
لم یأتی نذیر کافی نظر لم یأتی نذیر کافی نظر مثل تو نہ شد پیدا جانا جگ راج کو تاج تورے سر سو جگ راج کو تاج تورے سر ہے تجھ کو شہ دوسرا جانا انا فی عطاشوں البحر علا والموج تہا من بے کس طوفان ہوش ربا من بے کس طوفان ہوش ربا منج دھار میں ہوں بگڑی ہے القلب شجون والهم شجون دل زار چنا جان زیر چنوں دل زار چنا جان زیر چنوں پت اپنی में कासे कहूँ पस अपनी विपत में कास कहूँ मेरा कौन है तेरे सिवा जाना। बस खाम नवाए रज़ा ना ये तर्ज मेरी ना ये रंग मेरा ना ये तर्ज मेरी ना ये रंग मेरा इरशाद अहिब्बा नातिक था इरशाद अहिब्बा नातिक था नाचार इस राह पड़ा जाना। लम यति नज़ीरु काफ़ी नज़रिन लम यति नज़ीरु काफ़ी नज़रिन मिसले तो ना शुद पैदा जाना। जगराज को ताज तोरे सर सो जगराज को ताज तोरे सर सो है तुझको शहे दोसरा जाना। लम यति नज़ीरु काफ़ी नज़रिन मिसले तो ना शुद पैदा जाना।
Thank you, Brother Rifat. Our next reciter is Brother Owais. He will recite in English Naat. Please welcome him with a loud salawat.
اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله. As a blinding light you came to us, and just as suddenly you went away. The universe still resonates with echoes of Sallallahu Alayhi. The universe still resonates with echoes of Sallallahu Alayhi. You can sing that with me as well. As a blinding light you came to us, and just as suddenly you went away. The universe still resonates with echoes of Sallallahu Alayhi. The universe still resonates with echoes of Sallallahu Alayhi. Oh, flash of light in the flow of time, sweet Medina and beloved of mine, I speak with you in broken words, with a broken heart and a broken rhyme. My life is you, my love is you, connection to the Lord above is you, my cure from distress and dismay. The universe still resonates with echoes of Sallallahu Alayhi. The universe beautiful was never seen. I surrender at your doorstep all my dunya and my deen. O one who came to the merciful sight, oh, when he said, let there be light, convey our broken-hearted plight, that a glance of mercy be cast our way. The universe still resonates with echoes of Sallallahu Alayhi. The universe still resonates with echoes of Sallallahu Alayhi. No eye has seen such beauty as thine. No dame has born such a one so fine. You're created free of flaw, as if by your own design. May the Lord upon you send his peace, salutations, blessings that never cease, and to us a gentle breeze that makes us weep our nights away. The universe still resonates with echoes of Sallallahu Alayhi. The universe still resonates with echoes of Sallallahu Alayhi. As a blinding light, you came to us, and just as suddenly you went away. The universe still resonates with echoes of Sallallahu Alayhi. The universe still resonates with echoes of Sallallahu Alayhi. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik alayhi wa ala alihi.
Thank you, Brother Owais. On request from brothers and sisters, we will have one last nath from Brother Mansur. Please welcome him with a loud salawat.
दुरूद बर मोहम्मद आले मोहम्मद। मौला या सल्ली वसल्लिम दाइमन अबदन अला हबीबिका खैरिल खल्क़ि कुल्लिहिम। मौला या सल्ली वसल्लिम दाइमन अबदन अला हबीबिका खल्क़ि कुल्लिहिम। सहर का वक्त था, मासूम कलियां मुस्कुराती थीं, हवाएं खैर मकदम के तराने गुनगुनाती थीं। अभी जिब्रील उतरे भी ना थे काबे के मिंबर से, कि इतने में सदा आई ये अब्दुल्लाह के घर से। मुबारक हो शहे हर दोसरा तशरीफ ले आए, मुबारक हो मोहम्मद मुस्तफ़ा तशरीफ ले आए। मौला या सल्ली वसल्लिम दाइमन अबदन अला हबीबिका खैरिल खल्क़ि कुल्लिहिम। ना कोई आप सा होगा, ना कोई आप जैसा था। कोई यूसुफ से पूछे मुस्तफा का हुस्न कैसा था। زمین و آسماں میں کوئی بھی مثال نہ ملی مولا یا صلی وسلم دائماً ابداً علی حبیبک خیر الخلق کلہم محمد سید الکونین والثقلین محمد سید الکونین والثقلین والفریقین من عرب ومن عجم وہ محمد فخر عالم بادشاہ انس و جاں سرور کونین سلطان عرب شاہ عجم ایک دن جبریل سے کہنے لگے شاہ امم تم نے دیکھا ہے جہاں بتلاؤ کہ کیسے ہیں ہم عرض کی جبریل نے اے شاہدی اے محترم آپ کا کوئی مماثل ہی نہیں رب کی قسم هو الحبیب الذی ترجى شفاعته هو الحبیب الذی ترجى شفاعته لكل حول من الاحوال مقتحم سلام اس پر کہ جس نے بے کسوں کی دستگیری کی سلام اس پر کہ جس نے بادشاہی میں فقیری کی سلام اس پر کہ جس کے گھر میں چاندی تھی نہ سونا تھا سلام اس پر کہ ٹوٹا بور یا جس کا بچھونا تھا سلام آمنہ کے لال محبوب سبحانی سلام فخر موجودات فخر نو انسانی تیری صورت تیری سیرت تیرا نقشہ تیرا جلوہ تبسم گفتگو بندہ نوازی خندہ پیشانی تیرا در ہو میرا سر ہو میرا دل ہو تیرا گھر ہو تمنا مختصر سی ہے مگر تمہید طولانی مولا یا صلی وسلم دائماً ابداً علی حبیبک خیر الخلق کلہم درود ان پر سلام ان پر یہی کہنا خدا کا ہے خدا کے بعد جو ہے مرتبہ صلی اللہ کا ہے وہی سردار عالم ہے وہی غم خار امت ہے وہی تو حشر کے میدان میں سب کی شفاعت ہے شفاعت کے لیے سب کی نظر ان پر پڑی ہوگی مولا یا صلی وسلم دائماً ابداً علی حبیبک خیر الخلق کلہم مولا یا صلی وسلم دائماً ابداً علی حبیبک خیر الخلق کلہم درود بر محمد آل محمد
Thank you, Brother Mansoor. We will now begin our second segment. I would first like to invite Brother Jafar Siddiqui, who will be the host and moderator of this session. Brother Jafar Siddiqui was born and raised in Pakistan, where he got his early education. He later came to the United States for a master's in industrial engineering, which he received from University of Washington. He began his career as an industrial engineer in Britain. He returned to the US, where he was a construction project manager and later turned to real estate. He is currently a real estate agent in King and Snohomish counties. He is an activist and a member of American Muslims of Puget Sound. He has written commentaries in newspapers and magazines and has been a guest commentator on radio and TV. He is also the spokesperson for the United Muslims of Washington State, an association comprising of several different Muslim organizations in Puget Sound who have come together to oppose bigotry against Muslims and Islam. Please welcome Brother Jafar with a loud salawat. I will now introduce our guest and speaker, Sheikh Qasim Hatem. Sheikh Qasim Hatem was born in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where his forefathers built one of the very first mosques in North America. His family moved to Washington State in 1993, where he would later earn a full-ride scholarship to play football for the University of Washington. Originally recruited as a linebacker, he would go on to earn a starting position in 2001 at nose tackle on the top-ranked and Rose Bowl winning Huskies. Appearing in Sports Illustrated and becoming scouted by NFL teams, Sheikh Qasim seemed destined to fulfill the All-American dream. Shortly after that spectacular finish in the Rose Bowl, Sheikh Qasim incurred a life-threatening injury. Although he would not be able to play football that fall, he had the opportunity to return and play in the next 2 seasons to complete his college football career. He chose a different path entirely, his faith. A year after graduating with his bachelor's degree in psychology in 2003, Sheikh Qasim traveled to Yemen to study in the blessed city of Tarim. He studied at the prestigious seminary Dar al-Mustafa to study the traditional Islamic disciplines under some of the most illustrious scholars of our time. Sheikh Qasim completed his rigorous studies in 2011 with primary ijazah in Shafiqi, Aqidah, Arabic grammar, Tajweed, and Dawa. Currently, Sheikh Qasim is the executive director and resident scholar of the Meelad Foundation based in Seattle, Washington. He is also the Muslim chaplain for Harborview and University of Washington Medical Centers and the Muslim chaplain for a Washington State prison. Please welcome Sheikh Qasim with a loud salawat. Our next guest speaker is Sayyid Hadi Qazwini. Sayyid Hadi Qazwini is an Islamic educator based in Southern California. He has traveled extensively and lectured to various audiences across the United States and other parts of the world on Islam. Sayyid Qazwini completed his traditional Islamic seminary training in the Islamic Seminary of Qom, Iran. He received his MA in Theology and Islamic Studies from Claremont School of Theology and Bayan Claremont Islamic Graduate School, where he currently serves as a trustee and adjunct faculty member. He is currently pursuing his PhD in religion with a concentration on Islam at the University of Southern California. Sayyid Qazwini's area of academic interest and research in Islamic and comparative theology, Islamic law and legal theory, Islam in America, and inter-religious and intra-Muslim dialogue. Please welcome Sayyid Qazwini with a loud salawat. Thank you. I will now hand over the mic to Brother Jafar Siddiqui.
I think I have a mic here. Okay. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Oops. Okay. Okay. Is this better? Okay, all right. Thank you all for coming. What I'd like to do is start by a statement of position from the Husaynia Islamic Society of Seattle. It is with deep regret and sorrow that we observe the atrocities being committed by various countries. In Israel, the genocide against Palestinians has been conducted in a systemic manner ever since Israel was born. Today, it seems to have become more structured and cruel, and the West continues to provide Israel with arms. In Arabia, the Shia minority have been persecuted and quashed, and now the House of Saud has embarked upon genocide of the people of Yemen. The war against Yemen has caused hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children to be killed by Arabian bombs. Arabian blockade of Yemen has caused what the UN describes as the greatest human catastrophe today. And the West continues to provide Arabia with arms. In Myanmar, the genocide of the Rohingya continues unabated while the world watches. And again, the West continues to provide Myanmar with arms. In China, millions of Uyghurs have been imprisoned in China's purpose-built concentration camps and displaced from their homes only because of their faith. And, of course, the West continues to do business with China. It is deeply painful to note that our own country, the United States, is doing nothing to help put a stop to such atrocities and is actually complicit in the support of genocidal actions. The Husaynia Islamic Society of Seattle unequivocally rejects and condemns these and all other acts of crimes against humanity. We will do everything we can to make our country's political outlook revolve around real peace, real will of the people, and real justice as our foreign policy guides. We urge our fellow citizens to take a closer look at what is happening and to please contact your representatives and senators. Tell them to act immediately to stop these acts of genocide. End of statement. Thank you. I welcome our two scholars to this discussion on Eid Milad. Before we start, there are people with cards walking around. If you have a question now or at any time, raise your hand and someone will give you a card, write your question down, and they'll bring it up here. And we will use your questions as time allows. Starting right now, if you have questions. Okay. When we commemorate Meelad al-Nabi, we focus on the message of the Prophet Muhammad about peace, justice, human dignity, and brotherhood, or as many would say, unity. Amazingly, before we start again, I'm sorry we were to interrupt, but I forgot. There's going to be a show of a video before we start our discussion here. It's a brief one. It will start now. No? Take it. No problem.
Deliver for 40 years to Arab audiences. It is this, that the only thing stopping you from uniting is you.
بس إيران مثلها مثل أمريكا.
The United States cannot control the streets of Brooklyn. The United States cannot pay its electricity bills. The United States cannot stop the Lebanese people being together. The Lebanese being together with the Syrians, the Lebanese and the Syrians being together with the Iraqis. They cannot stop the Arabs being together. Only the Arabs are stopping the Arabs being together. As long as people sit in coffee shops with their argili, blaming the Hawaja, blaming the Turkish, blaming the British, blaming the Israelis, blaming the Saudis, blaming the Iranians, you will always be divided. And as long as you're divided, you'll be weak. And as long as you are weak, they'll steal your wealth. It's not rocket science. You don't have to be Einstein to work it out. Unity is strength. If you could only stop thinking like Sunni and Shia, like Lebanese and Syrian, like left and right, like Maghrebi or Levantine, if you could, or Gulfi, if you could only stop thinking like that, you are 350 million people who speak the same language. You know, in Europe, we speak 150 languages. You speak one language with one God. Imagine the strength that you could have if you came together. But as long as you are ready to sit and blame other people, you will never be united. And as long as you are not united, you will be divided. And as long as you are divided, they will steal your things. That's why they're doing it. They don't care if you're Sunni or Shia. They don't. Listen, madam, in the parliament in which I sit, there's 650 members. If I ask them one by one to define the difference between Sunni and Shia, none of them could do so. None of them. They don't care if you're Sunni or Shia. They don't care if you pray or fast or make Hajj. They don't care about Islam. They don't care about religion. They just care about dividing you. They just care about making you fight against each other. As long as you're fighting each other, you're not fighting them. You're not fighting Israel. You're allowing them to steal your oil, steal your gas, steal your water. You're allowing them to rob you of that which God gave you. I'm sorry if I'm passionate about this, because it's the most important thing of them all, that the Arabs can find it within themselves to be one people. Shahab Arabi Wahad, Wahad. This should be your slogan. It's been marvelous.
So, getting back, when we commemorate Meelad al-Nabi, we focus on the message of the Prophet about peace, justice, human dignity and brotherhood, or as many would say, unity. Amazingly, unity has so many different meanings that some of them are actually in conflict with each other. Our goal is to find unity amongst ourselves. So I would ask our guests here, starting with Sayyid Hadi, how would you define unity? And perhaps then, Sheikh Hatem, you can also enlighten us. How would you define unity? What does it mean, really?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, all praise is due to God, Lord of the universe. May God's peace and blessings be upon all of His prophets and messengers, including His final and beloved messenger, the seal of the prophets, Muhammad, and his purified household and righteous companions. Dear respected sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, before I answer, I'd like to express my gratitude to the Husaynia Islamic Society for putting together this wonderful event tonight, and for inviting me to participate. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to be with you tonight on this beautiful occasion. As someone who lives in Southern California in Los Angeles, I think today was the first day in many months that I actually saw the clouds and rain. So today is a beautiful day for me, alhamdulillah. Um, I would suggest that when we think of unity, we think of what the goal is behind unity. Oftentimes, I think the term or the concept unity gets confused with another concept that sounds the same but is not necessarily the same, and that is uniformity. And sometimes we assume that to be united is to have uniform views, to have one view with no differences at all. And I think that in some ways, unity and uniformity, in some ways they're similar, but in some ways they're very different. The way that I see unity as being is this idea that we recognize that there are differences that we have with one another. The Quran and the prophetic traditions, they're replete with verses and with ahadith and narrations about the importance of maintaining unity and avoiding division and conflict. I won't rehearse them here. We have a beautiful verse behind us here, and many others that we've memorized and we've read and we've so on and so forth countless times. But I think it's important to distinguish between division and conflict and between difference. And I think that the first is frowned upon generally in the teachings, in the Quran and the Hadith. It is frowned upon that we are disunited or that we are in discord and conflict and division. Whereas the second difference, I think, is just an inevitable part of being a human being. And in fact, I think maybe even the case can be made that difference is something that is celebrated. We see this in the Quran. Throughout the Quran, this theme is recurring. The Quran talks about various differences that we have as human beings. One type of differences are our physical differences. The Quran is very clear, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ, and of God's signs, خَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, the creation of the heavens and the earth, وَاخْتِلَافُ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَأَلْوَانِكُمْ, and the differences in your tongues, meaning in your languages, and in your colors. So God says the languages that you speak, they're different. The color of your skin is different, and this is from the signs of God. One of the signs of God is that you are different in your physical compositions. We can talk about cultural differences. The Quran also says, Ya ayyuhan nas, O humankind, inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha, we created you from a male and female. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلٍ, we made you into nations and tribes. Meaning what? Meaning you have differences in your culture, differences in, kind of your food, your dress, and this is part of sort of God's plan of creation. And then there's also, I think, even the example of what we would call religious differences. The Quran talks about, for instance, لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا. To each of you, we made shir'a wa minhaj, a path, a way of life, a way of understanding, what we would probably call a religious tradition, a religious worldview. وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَجَعَلَكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدًا, that God says. Had God willed, He would have made you into one nation, meaning one religious community, really. So the Quran talks about difference in different ways, and I think in a way it's inevitable. What I think it shuns and what it discourages us is from allowing those differences that we have to lead to division, to lead to discord, to lead to conflict with one another. So just to go back to the question of unity, I think understanding unity is really a matter of understanding what the objective is. What is our purpose? What is our objective?
and trying to work together towards that objective, even if, and especially when we recognize that we are different in our various expressions.
Thank you. Sheikh Hatem.
Jazakallah khair, barakallahu feek. Thank you so much for the answer. I think he took all my ayat and hadith, so there goes half of my answer.
Yes.
So, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidina Muhammadin, Ashraf al-Anbiya wa Sayyid al-Mursaleen, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Alhamdulillah, it's an honor and privilege to be here. Thank you so much for putting on this program and inviting us to this event and to stand on stage with all of you. May Allah bless and reward you, inshallah, in this life and the next life, inshallah. Ameen. Alhamdulillah, the question was asked about unity. How do we define it? How do we understand it? Like I said, a lot of things that were previously said.
I meant how do you see unity?
Right.
Not how generally it is defined.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Yes.
Sorry.
No, that's good, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, a lot of things that were previously said is what I actually had written down. But alhamdulillah, unity is something that I see as us coming together for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and agreeing to disagree on certain issues and for a common cause, for a common goal, and to focus on that prize, eyes on the prize. And it's interesting because a lot of people, like you were saying, confuse this with uniformity, and it doesn't mean everybody's the same and everybody's identical. There's a difference between like ittihad, which is coming together, unity, and like tasawi, being the exact same, being identical. So I see that the differences can make the difference. And it's important for us, I think, as Muslims to recognize, like he said, and even appreciate to some degree the differences we have as an ummah. And not allow, like you're saying, to divide others, to divide and conquer us from outside. And as long as we're united, inshallah, for the sake of Allah, for a common goal, a common cause, then inshallah, nobody will be able to break us apart or conquer us. It's interesting because Islamophobia, anti-Muslim bigotry, which is rampant, is something that nobody's going to ask, if they see hijabi or somebody wearing a kufi, are you Shia or are you Sunni, before they attack you, right? So if somebody's neo-Nazi or white supremacist, they're not going to distinguish between one or the other. To them, it's just other. It's xenophobia. You're just a Muslim. So we're going to have some issue with that. And so as Muslims, if we can come together and protect one another, inshallah, for that common reason, then that will help us all as an ummah. Also, inshallah, just to mention some of the ayat and hadith regarding this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentioned that ayah that he talked about, Ya ayyuhan nas, inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha, wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qabaila li ta'arafu, inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. O people, we have made you, and this is Muslims and non-Muslims, let alone between different sects in Islam, we have made you male and female, and we have made you different tribes and nations, which comes with different colors of skin, different cultures, different languages, different foods. I'm Lebanese, so I appreciate Lebanese food and Arab food, but I also like Desi food, and I like Somali food, and I'm born here, so I like American food. It's different cultures and languages and colors of skin. And the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did that, as he mentions in the Quran, is not so that we can hate each other. It's not that we can look at all the things that make us different. It is something that he says, the ta'arafu, so that you can come together and get to know one another. And it starts with getting to know first Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and getting to know the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the month that he was born, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We're here celebrating his birthday. So get to know your Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the greatest of all creation. And then he says, the best of you in the sight of Allah, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah, atqakum, are those that have the most taqwa, God consciousness, piety. And he didn't say those who are the rich or those who are poor, those who are east, those who are west, those who are white, those who are black. He said those who have the most taqwa, which is an unseen attribute in the heart. The Prophet Muhammad was asked about taqwa. He said, at-taqwa ha-huna, at-taqwa ha-huna, at-taqwa ha-huna. He says God consciousness, piety is in the heart. It's here, it's here, it's here. 3 times emphasizing that the place that it is where Allah gazes, not where human beings gaze. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows who's close to him. He knows the pious and the righteous. That's something we don't know and cannot judge on the outward because we don't judge anyone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who judges and has the right to. And so in that sense, we have husna dhan. We have a good opinion of one another. We don't suspect each other. We don't blame and all these things. We have a good opinion where we think that if there's something to carry it on something good, then we carry that on that, inshallah, not on something bad or something that is evil or something like that. I also want to mention Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about unity and brotherhood. He says, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً, that the believers are brothers and sisters of each other. فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخَوَيْكُمْ, so rectify that which is between your brethren. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us in the Quran that, hey, we're coming together. All of us believe in La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. What unites 1.8 billion people in the fastest growing religion on the earth? It is La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. And if that's something we all believe in as a common denominator in our hearts, then Allah is telling us we are brothers and sisters in faith. And that bond of brotherhood and sisterhood and faith is stronger than blood. Somebody can have a biological brother or sister that maybe rejects and denies Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But they can have a brother and sister in faith that is, even from a different sect or have, different opinions, and that person will be closer to them than their own brother and sister because faith is stronger than blood. As one of my teachers, he said, you might be in Jannah, and the people, the ticket in Jannah, the key to the gates of the garden is La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. So you might be there and you might have bickered and fought and hated on somebody in the dunya because they were different than you, yet they're your neighbor in Jannah. Because they said La ilaha illallah, they believed in that, they died on that. You said La ilaha illallah, you believed in it, you died on it. Alhamdulillah, that's the greatest ni'mah, the ni'mah of Islam. And so that person that was your hated enemy that you opposed is now your neighbor in Jannah because they died on faith and you died on faith. So alhamdulillah, we don't know, and that's something only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. And for that reason, it's something that's important because sometimes intra-faith between Muslims is more difficult than interfaith. I'm telling you this, like I got actually a lot of heat just being here, coming here at this program, because sometimes people don't recognize that, interfaith between us is actually probably more important as brothers and sisters in faith as a priority than interfaith.
You guys make this.
Alhamdulillah.
You guys make this wall between. That's why people.
Alhamdulillah, mashallah. So sometimes it can be easier to talk to non-Muslims about Islam than sometimes Muslims about Islam. And again, it's an issue, it's a problem, and that's something we're trying to work to resolve and fix, alhamdulillah. So this being said, I wanted to also just mention briefly that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says in a hadith, he says, "La yu'minu ahadakum hatta yuhibbu li akhihi ma yuhibbu li nafsihi." None of you truly have faith, like true perfect faith, until you love for your brother and sister in faith. And Imam Nawawi says in faith and also in humanity. In faith and humanity, what you love for yourself. If you love good for you, you love Islam for you, then you should love that for your brother and sister in faith. And of course, we have many things where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ, hold to the firm rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we have many things where Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for example, a story, the Aus and the Khazraj, they were enemies, sworn enemies. This is before Islam. And it was all about a camel race. That one of them believed that they cheated, and so they killed the camel, then they killed the rider, and then they killed more, and they went. It was like Bloods and Crips, man. Mm-hmm. They were like killing each other, gangster style, because you killed one of ours, we're going to kill 5 of yours. You killed 5, we're going to kill 10 of yours. And so this whole thing goes and forth for 40 years, and what brought them together is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, out of love and unity. So I think it's the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well, even in celebration of his birth and celebration of the Meelad. I think he can bring us together, inshallah. And inshallah, we can remove these types of divisive things between us. And as some of my teachers have said, if you have one stick, it's easy to break. But if you put them all together, you can't break it. It will break your leg before you break the stick. They'll say like one finger is easy to break, but if it's united for a common cause, then it's a fist, which is powerful. It cannot be broken, but it can actually break. Right? So these are some of the things that our teachers have said. And we need to be proactive, not reactive. So it's not so much about, I'm going to convince you that Sunni Islam is the best and right, and here's why. Or I'm going to convince you that Shia Islam is the best here and why. We have to, again, accept and recognize our differences, try to respect one another as brothers and sisters in Islam, have a better understanding, inshallah, and then move on. So it's not about, I'm going to convert you, you're going to convert me. Okay, you're this, I'm that, alhamdulillah. How can we coexist in peace and harmony as brothers and sisters in Islam? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ خَدَمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, indeed, we ennobled all the children of Adam. Let's start with humanity first. This is not just Muslims, yani. all of humanity. Allah has ennobled, He has bestowed dignity on all human beings, as He says in the Quran. That doesn't mean you agree with all of them. That doesn't mean you like and support and promote everything all human beings do. But can you recognize the human dignity that Allah has bestowed in every single human being, let alone your brothers and sisters in Islam? That's one thing. And then secondly, there's a difference between promoting, supporting everything and anything, and including and tolerating. I truly believe we can include and tolerate all human beings, let alone Muslims. That doesn't mean that you are on what they're on. Allah says, "Lakum dinukum waliya din." For you is your faith and for me is mine. You have your way, I have my way. Alhamdulillah, live and let live. You know, people go to work. They go to work in school. They work with not kuffar, non-Muslims, for a common cause of, getting this job done, hitting this deadline, getting this grade, getting this credit for this class and this career and this resume and that diploma. Why can't we work together as Muslims for a common cause as well? If we work with non-Muslims, why can't we work with Muslims? So this is some of the things that I feel that is part of unity and that can bring us together, inshallah. And again, as a strong Sunni Muslim, I'm not saying that it's something that, everybody has to be on one thing, one page. It's not. Everybody's different, but then just accepting the differences, coming together, unified, agreeing to disagree, being proactive, coexisting in peace and harmony, and moving on. And especially if there's something that affects all of us, we need to fight against that cause, stand against that cause. Like we were watching the film, nobody's going to disagree that anti-Muslim bigotry is okay for any Muslim, because today it's Sunni, tomorrow it's Shiite. Yesterday was Shiite, today it's Sunni. It's going to be one of us, any one of us. If one of us can fall, if it can happen to any one of us, it can happen to you. It can happen to me, it can happen to you. It happen to you, it can happen to me. So we all have to fight against this common enemy or common cause, inshallah, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that affects all of us. Sorry for going long.
Thank you, Sheikh Hadi, Sheikh Hatem. You raised some very, very important points, and they were coming so fast that I couldn't keep track of them, but some of them really stood out. We have Muslims who, in the eyes of God, anyone who says La ilaha illallah is a Muslim. If someone says he's a Muslim, it's not for us to say he's not. That's God's job, not ours. And yet, we find one of the most comfortable spots that many of us have is takfir. And in order for me to feel comfortable in my little sectarian belief, everyone else has to be wrong. And if they're wrong, then they're not following Islam, and then therefore they are kuffar. And so we go on, we continue with distrust and dislike, and yet on the same people who don't get along with each other because one is Shia, Sunni, Ahmadiyya, Ismaili, whatever, when we go to work, we can be working in the same office, and we'll cooperate, and we'll talk, and we'll share stories, and we'll work towards a common goal. But the common goal of our unity, of our strength is not there. We watch each other get chewed up by injustice and do nothing, and that's very difficult. How it's not a question, an answer that I think we can resolve today, but it's still a very important question. Just to start with, how can we have Eid Milad al-Nabi where we are actually having a diversity of sects, so that different people attend because of the common purpose, which is Eid Milad al-Nabi and the message of the Prophet and the message of God in the Quran, rather than I won't sit with this person because he is from this sect, and I won't sit with that person because she is from that sect, and we're breaking ourselves up. I don't think there's a gold and silver bullet, but there must be the beginning of an answer to get our different groups together. What do you think? Is there, what would you do? How would you approach it?
Alhamdulillah, That's a lot of great questions, mashallah, and comments, alhamdulillah. I don't know the full answer, but some of the signs of insecurities of one's own faith is that they are out to get everyone else for theirs. So they go on the attack mode instead of being secure with who they are, what they're on, and what they believe. They're going to go and pick everyone else apart. So I think this idea, I mean, 21st century, especially in America, the big melting pot, as they say, or salad bowl, and especially born and raised here, growing up here. My mom was born here. The idea that we're just going to go around and tear everyone apart is not really productive at all. It only makes you feel better about yourself and your faith. So you can be grounded in what you believe, and you can be secure in that. You won't feel like you have to go out and divide and separate and be partisan and attack other people. Now that doesn't mean that there's a difference between, I think, like an academic perspective. For example, I'm a teacher, you're a teacher, we do Islamic faith. Maybe we teach our tradition, and this is our tradition, and this is what our tradition is not. If you're going to be intellectual and academic and teach a class, of course, that's different. I'll teach Sunni Islam, you'll probably teach Shia Islam. And that's okay, right? But the idea that I am going to go out and attack Shiites, verbally or physically, is something our Prophet Muhammad says, La darar wa la dirar. Do not harm and do not reciprocate harm. Al-Muslim akhul Muslim. The Muslim is a brother or sister of another Muslim. Right? He constantly reiterates this theme. Do not harm each other. So I think that programs and events that everyone can agree with, coming together for the sake of Allah as different groups and different sects within Islam, where we can say, hey, you know what, we can come together to celebrate the birth of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We can come together to do a Meelad. I think that's the first step in the right direction. Although even within Sunni Islam, right, you're going to have some Sunnis that don't agree with the Meelad either, right? That think maybe it's bid'ah or shirk or these kind of things, right? You hear I've heard these things from the Sunni community about myself. So I know what's out there, but not everybody's going to agree on that. But maybe we can have maybe more general, even more universal, and include more groups together and more community members, inshallah, and then we can work towards a common goal or cause, especially as it has to do with justice, especially has to do with fighting Islamophobia and peace and so forth. Those kind of things are universal. And I think focusing on commonalities over differences. This is really important. Instead of you can address some things, right? But instead of focusing on the differences, how about the overwhelming commonalities you have, right? Like it's just common edib. When you talk to somebody, whether Muslim or non-Muslim, a lot of times you're going to focus on what you guys agree on and want to talk about versus just everything you want to disagree about and so forth. So again, that doesn't mean there are not clear differences. There are. And like I said, we know that, we teach that. But what is it that unites us, I think, is more than what divides us. And focusing on that, I think, is important. And then focusing on those universal things that does that together. And I think that's a good start. And then over time and consistently, these things can have an impact, inshallah, long term.
Sayyid Hadi.
Thank you, Sheikh Qasim, for those inspiring words. I really think part of the problem, look, Islam is 1,400 years old. And for 1,400 years, neither were the Sunnis successful in converting all of the Shi'is, nor were all the Shi'is successful in converting the Sunnis. These differences they're just a natural part of the way that the history of Islam has unfolded. And I think that one of the very, very important things that we have to keep in mind is I'm kind of skeptical about throwing blame only on the outside, some random outside. They're trying to divide us, they're trying to destroy us. I understand those sentiments, but I don't agree with them fully. I think much of it goes back to our internal issues, one of which I think is a general lack of education. I see this as an educator, as a teacher. I'm sure Sheikh Qasim sees this, others, that a lot of those who claim to be either Sunni or Shi'i don't even know their tradition, their own tradition well enough, let alone the tradition of other Muslims. And I think that, Sheikh Qasim raised a very beautiful point. He said it very quickly, but I think that it requires a little bit of attention. And that is that when you take the time and the effort to
to...
You start again, please. The mic died.
Yes. Can everyone hear me, by the way? Okay, because I can hear some of you too. The point that I was making was that when we take the time and the effort to study our religious tradition, to learn about our religious tradition, to learn about the history and the development of thought within our religious tradition, whether it's theology, whether it's law, whether it's the doctrines that we believe in, all of these things, if we take the time and effort to be better grounded in terms of our education, then for the most part, we are able to combat this inferiority complex, I think, that leads to a lot of this takfir, shunning others, ostracizing them, trying to show that I am successful if you are unsuccessful. If I can destroy you, and if I can destroy what I think you believe in, and the foundations of your thought, then that makes me the winner by default, automatically. And I think that's problematic. And we can resolve this, a lot of this, through education. Now, I'm not saying that anyone who gains knowledge is automatically going to accept others. A lot of ulama engage in takfir. So the ilm, knowledge, does not necessarily translate into tolerance of others and accepting others. But what I think it does do, it gives us a greater appreciation, or the possibility of a greater appreciation for not only our own religious tradition, but also, I think, in addition to that, is that we also go and learn about others. And I say this as someone who does religious studies. I study, other religious traditions, and I study within other religious traditions, the various traditions within Islam, various theological and legal groups and schools and whatnot. Once we take the time and effort to learn and to educate ourselves and our communities, I think we are in a much better place to accept diversity, to recognize that what I have, the tradition that I have, is also a tradition that took 1,400 years to build. It didn't just plop from the sky. Look, just take the example of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Usually on birthdays, by the way, when we celebrate our own birthdays, we expect everyone to give us a gift. Isn't that so? If someone's attending my birthday and they don't give me a gift, I probably won't invite them to my birthday again. So we're together celebrating the birthday of our Prophet, and perhaps the best gift that we can give to the Prophet is to send praise and blessings upon the Prophet. So let's put a little bit more energy and effort. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. So I think that, when we look at the life and legacy of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, we find he was a messenger for 23 years. It took him 23 years. This Quran that we have and we recite, it took him 23 years. That's a lot. It's not a little bit of time. It wasn't 1 or 2 days or 2 or 3 weeks. It took him 23 years just to relate that message to his community, just to relate that revelation to his community. And much of what we take for granted, I'll just give you an example, right? We know that as Muslims, one of the biggest no-nos, prohibitions in Islam is the consumption of alcohol, right? Everyone agree, inshallah? Inshallah.
No khilaf.
Right? The prohibition of alcohol was not an overnight thing. Anyone, this is common knowledge. If you go and you read the history, you will find, in fact, the Quran in several places refers to this prohibition of knowledge. It was a gradual process. It was a gradual process. Okay, this thing that's so important within our tradition that we take for granted, it was a gradual process. What does that mean? It means that the Prophet understood that in order to change a community, it's not a quick process. It requires time. It requires patience. It requires effort. But we have to start somewhere, okay? And so when we take the time and the effort to learn, to really take the time and effort to learn our tradition, our history, this history of Islam, and how the theology, the law, all of this developed, then I think this puts us in a much better place to appreciate diversity, to recognize that there was one goal, and there continues to be one goal of all Muslims. All Muslims have that one goal, and that is to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the basic sort of objective of every single Muslim. But we might express that goal in different ways. We understand that same Quran, that same prophet, that same messenger. We don't believe in different messengers. We don't believe in different revelations. It's that same God, one God, who revealed that same Quran to the same messenger. Over the course of 1400 years, Muslims understood and interpreted this message in different ways. That's basically where we are now. And I think if we do not understand this and if we do not appreciate this, then there's no way for us to be able to move forward. So it's not going to happen overnight. And it should not, in terms of just our understanding, we have to be a little patient. I know we want quick solutions. We want to make the world a better place immediately. And oftentimes we set our eyes on places very far away, and for the right reasons in many ways. But also I think we have to think of how we can start in our most local and immediate context. I'll share with you an interesting story. It's a Chinese story. Chinese story is about a young man. Some of you may have heard this story. A young man is 20 years old, and he decides that he wants to change the world and make the world a better place. And he gives himself a deadline of 20 years. He says, by the time I become 40 years old, I'm going to make the world a better place. So the days and the months and the weeks and the years go by. 20 years passes by. I think they have a note for you. Okay. 20 years passes by. He's 40 years old. He's celebrating his 40th birthday. He looks around and he notices the world is pretty much the same as he left it 20 years ago. So he says, you know what, the world is pretty big. Let me change my country for the better. Let me make America great. And so I'll give myself 20 years to do that. And so the days and the weeks and the months and the years go by. He turns 60 years old. He notices his country is pretty much the same. He says, you know what, my country is very big. Let me try to make my city a better place. And I give myself 20 years to make my city a better place. The days and the weeks and the months and the years go by. He's 80 years old, and he notices, we're doing the math right? 80 years old, okay. 80 years old, and he notices that his city's still pretty much the same. He says, you know what? My city's still pretty big. Let me make my family better. Let me give myself 20 years, and I'll change my family. I'll make my family better. And so the days and the months and the years go by, and mashallah, God gives him long life. It's his 100th birthday, and he notices that none of his family members really listen to him. Who's going to listen to a poor old man? Huh? At that moment, he realized that he should have probably started with himself. It's very easy for us, brothers and sisters, I'll end with this note. It's very easy for us to put the blame on others. This is the easiest thing that we can do. So-and-so country, so-and-so entity, so-and-so religion, so-and-so ideology, so-and-so group, they're destroying us, they're trying to divide us, they're trying to conquer us. But it's very difficult to stand and to look in the mirror and to ask ourselves with truth, with honesty, what am I doing? What am I personally doing? Sometimes we expect our ulama, our religious leaders to initiate change, to solve the world. Okay, they're in positions of responsibility, but what am I doing? On a personal level, what am I doing? Have I personally taken the time and effort to get to know a Sunni? Or do I just expect that, I have a celebration done and We have Sunni, Shi'i, and then they'll come and we'll talk a little bit. Everyone goes their ways. Do I personally know, not at work or, a coworker, as a coworker or something, personally know a Sunni. I've gone to their home, they've come to mine, we've shared a meal together, we've, shared, beautiful moments together, or vice versa. I have to ask myself this question. How much time and effort have I taken into getting to know what, a Sunni believes in, or Shi'i believes in, or someone else believes in? What are their beliefs? And these are important questions that I think we need to ask ourselves. So it's a long journey. The first step is that we kind of begin with ourselves. We do a little bit of introspection. We think about how we can build ourselves, our intellectual capacities more, our social relationships, and slowly but surely you find that, it has a greater impact, inshallah.
Thank you. You're right. Starting with ourselves is a very simple solution, but it's one of the most difficult ones. It's easier for me to tell you to change yourself than for me to tell myself that I need to change. And I've seen many times different sects, and they say, our doors are open, they can come anytime they like. But that's not an invitation, that's not the connection that you're saying, as a Shia or a Sunni, have I reached out and really gotten to know the other person. And that's important. We have several sects not sects, but I would say groups within different sects who frown upon even a celebration of the birth of the Prophet. They say this should not happen. And I suppose the question is, can they be motivated to join such events? Can those groups, Sheikh Hatem, do you think we can get some of those groups who frown upon the celebration of Eid Milad al-Nabi to actually at least come around and be present or participate in some way directly, or at least bring their bodies here? Is there a way to do that? Yes?
Yeah, that's a $1 million question there, if anybody figures that one out. But alhamdulillah, it's an important one. How do we get more people to come to the Mawlids or the Meelad? Coming kind of from both sides of that coin, because I used to be against Mawlids and then now for Mawlids and all that. But I would say that you can present all the evidence that you want and reasons, and some people will believe it, some people will not. And I've kind of the conclusion after going through all the research and all the ayats and hadith and all the opinions of the scholars, and presented that to people and showed and this and that, I've kind of come to the conclusion at this point that if you want to come to the Mawlid, Bismillah, come. Yeah. Enjoy yourself. People benefit. People want to show their mahabbah, their love for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and inshallah, you will also benefit yourself. And so, if you want to come. Back that up. There's ayat and hadith we can mention. And if you don't want to come, okay. The problem that I see is when takfir or tabdi' happens, is when people declare something else a kafir, or they say this is a bid'ah sayya or a reprehensible innovation. This is where it becomes a problem, because now again it's on the offensive, and now it's attacking somebody else upon what they believe. So I think it's my arm that's turning this off or something. This is the issue. I mean, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says in a hadith, "Man qala li akhi al-Muslim ya kafir, faqad ba'a biha ahaduhum an-nar." That whoever has said to their Muslim brother or sister, "Oh kafir," they say they're a disbeliever, then indeed one of them is going to fall into the hellfire. One of them, the hellfire is incumbent upon. And so how do you know it's not you? So I always ask people that. How do you know you're not the one that, if you do takfir, that it's not you the one that ends up in hell instead of the person that you're doing it of? So either you're right or you're wrong, but it's one of the two that's going to be there. So be careful and cautious of this. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, "Wallahi la akhafu an tushriku min ba'di." I swear to God, I'm not afraid that you guys are going to commit shirk after me. So this idea that Muslims are afraid all the time that all these Muslims are doing shirk and kufr and all these things. And it's something the Prophet Muhammad was not afraid of or worried about himself. So then why are we so concerned with it? And does that mean it doesn't? No, it does exist, it is there, but it's not a major concern. You want to know what a major concern was for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? What he called minor shirk. Minor shirk, which is riyas, ostentation. Doing things for other than the sake of Allah, which is a disease of the heart. It's considered actually a major sin. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Akhfa ala ummati min dabib an-namal." It is more subtle to my ummah than the crawling of an ant, that seeps into the heart, that I do things for other than Allah's sake. I want people to see me. I want people to hear me. I want to be, especially in the age of social media, narcissism. I want likes. I want shares. I want retweets. I want to be famous. The faqir, the poor person. I mean, I was a football player for the Rose Bowl and champions and all that at UW Huskies during 2001. I know what it's like to be there, but I can tell you it's not going to bring you happiness, or it's not going to make you feel fulfilled. It's not going to make you, special to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not going to necessarily bring you happiness. So, there are much more important things that we're living for. Like the Sheikh said, we're all trying to get to Jannah. We have different maybe ways of getting there, but we're all trying to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I think this is the thing, we look, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he celebrated his own birthday in his own way. He says in a hadith, somebody asked him, why do you fast every Monday? He said, ذَلِكَ يَوْمْ وَلِدْتُ فِيهِ. That's the day I was born. He didn't ask him about the day he was born. He asked him, why are you fasting Monday? He said, because I was born that day. I'm celebrating my own birthday. وَذَلِكَ يَوْمٌ أُنزِلَ عَلَيَّ الْقُرْآنِ. And that's the day that the Quran was revealed to me. So he celebrates revelation, and he celebrates the day he's born by fasting. So some might say, well, then why don't you just fast? Yes, inshallah, that is established sunnah, to fast on every Monday, the day he was born. You're still celebrating his birthday as he did, and that's one act of worship. And scholars will say there are other acts of worship, like Quran and dhikr and speeches and admonition and sadaqah and food and tea and socialization. This is all good, right? This is all mahabbah that we're trying to inculcate. So, there are many reasons and things like that. And maybe just, there are some things I just wanted to touch on too in the previous question, if you don't mind, is, I think the Sheikh was right on when he was talking about the importance of education and tradition and knowing your own. Because if you don't define yourself, other people will define you for you. That's what we're seeing today in the news, some of the news and media and politics, is all these people are telling us a non-Muslim's version of Islam and defining us for us instead of us proactively defining ourselves. And you can define yourselves as Shia, Sunni, know your own tradition, have the education, and then know the one across the aisle. Yes, get to know your Sunni or Shia neighbor and know their tradition a little bit to know what they believe and what they're on. And there's nothing blameworthy about that. I myself, when I studied in Yemen, there's a lot of Shia Muslims there, and there's a lot of Sunnis and a lot of different types of Muslims. So I remember I was in a halaqah in Dar al-Mustafa and Tarim, which is one of the highest concentrations of Ahl al-Bayt in the world. It's in Hadramaut Valley in Yemen, mostly from Hussein radiallahu anhu. So, and this is his children, his descendants, they're scholars, and I studied there. And I remember I was in a halaqah, and there was somebody wearing a green turban, and a black turban, and a white turban, and all these things representing different things, right? So there was like the Sunni, the Shia, the Brelvi, the Deobandi, the Salafi, the Sufi. I was like, man, subhanAllah, I've never seen all these people in one place in peace and harmony in one halaqah, all learning Islam. It was Sunni school. They're all learning the same thing from the same sheikh, but they still had this respect and this love for one another despite their differences, and they were able to kind of come together for, like we said, that common cause. So one thing I remember in the last interfaith event we had, there was a visiting Shia scholar that came, and I remember I sat and I talked to him about some of the things. I was just trying to seek knowledge. There's a difference between I'm trying to refute and attack, and I'm trying to seek knowledge from somebody. So I asked him, some of the controversial things, that maybe Sunnis and Shias have. I said, how do you understand this? Please educate me. I actually seeking. And so he said, this is this. And I could have this wonderful conversation with him because it was based on knowledge. He's giving me ayat and hadith and what some scholars say. So we were going back in as respectful and civil with adab, and I'm like, okay, thanks for helping me better understand. I was more enlightened. That doesn't mean I agree with it all and I do that and practice it on my own. And that's okay. But at least it was something where, like Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, Imam Shafi'i said, لو ناقشت ألف عالم لغلبتهم ولو ناقشني جاهل واحد لغلبت. That if I debated 1,000 scholars, I could out-debate them, I could overcome them. But if I was debated by one ignorant person, they would overcome me. I couldn't debate an ignorant person, they're going to win. But I could debate, meaning discussion. I could have a discussion with scholars and talk to them about these things. So it's important, even with our own tradition, not to do any takfir. or things like that because it is dangerous. Is anybody here promised paradise? Is anybody going to die in Iman and Shahada? Promised. Guaranteed, 100%, stamped and approved, you're going to Jannah. Anyone? No. Nobody's ma'soom, nobody's infallible. That was, prophets and messengers. Nobody is guaranteed promised paradise, like no matter what. You never know the state you're going to die in. And if you don't know the state you're going to die in, you don't know your ends. We hope and pray, and in the mercy of Allah, that we enter Jannah, but you don't know. And so how can you judge other people if you don't know your own ending? You don't know if somebody's going to take Shahada right before they die and become Muslim, which I have seen. And you don't know if somebody's Muslim is going to renounce their faith right before they die and die as a kafir. You don't know. And so Allah knows, not us, and so don't judge people. Look at them with the eye of mercy. Look at them from the standpoint of love, because maybe they are better than you, or maybe they will be better than you. And so that's something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. And then diversity itself is not defined as different people, even different colors of skin and ethnicities and backgrounds come together and believe the same thing. That's not diversity. Diversity is when different people of different backgrounds come together and believe in different things, different ideologies, different beliefs, different ways of worship. That's diversity, but they can do so civilly. And it's important in this, like to be objective. To be objective even in one's own tradition, on one's community. So it's not so much, well, khalas, I'm Sunni, Sunnis are all right and Shias are all wrong. Or I'm Shi'i, Shi'is are all right and Sunnis are all wrong. Look objectively, yani. Don't be subjective to everything because I happen to be this and that's the label applied to me, or this is the way I was born or something. Yani, if there are some things in a Sunni community or a Shia community that are not right or that are problematic, this is something not necessarily call out, but this is something we would say, well, this is an issue or this is something we don't agree with, even if it's from your own community. So get very careful of them versus us. The Bush, you're with us or you're with the terrorist. Who said that? George Bush, right? No, you don't have to be with us or with the terrorists. You can be neutral, you can be independent, right? You can be with everyone. You don't have to be my way or the highway deen. You're with me or you're against me. And the scholars, they say if you point a finger at somebody or some community, then you have 4 fingers pointing right back at you, right? You might be the one. And so as the Sheikh was saying, we really have to focus on changing ourselves first and foremost. Allah says in the Quran what? إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change that which is first within themselves. Do you know there's 2 tafsir on this? One is Allah will not change you for better until Allah will not change the people for the better until you first change yourself, right? Mahatma Gandhi, be the change you wish to see in the world. You be the change you wish to see in the world. And then the other interpretation is Allah will not change you from a better state to a worse state unless you first change yourself. If you change yourself for the worse, then your state and the people around you will be changed for the worse. If you change yourself for the better, then your state and the people will be changed for the better, inshallah. So this is some of the things that it starts with you. And as it had been mentioned, that we judge people by their actions and we judge ourselves by our intentions. This is so true, yeah. You did this, you said that, I'm judging you by your actions and what you said and what you did. But when somebody says, well, what about you? Oh, my intentions were pure. I was sincere. I judge myself on my intentions, not my actions. And I judge everyone else on their actions, not their intentions. And husna dhan states, good opinion of others, is that we don't judge anyone, but we assume it's their intentions are good and that they're sincere and pure, inshallah. And even if, and we always reprimand ourselves. Look at yourself. I mean, one of my Sheikh Habib Omar bin Hafiz, who's Husayni. He's from Ahl al-Bayt, he's a Sayyid, he's a Alim, he's a Mufti, he's a Hafid, mashallah, he's a huge scholar in Yemen. And he said that the minor sin on your neck on Yawm al-Qiyamah will be more precedent and concerning to you than all the sins of humanity. You're going to focus on all the sins of humanity? From beginning to end, the minor sin on your neck, Yawm al-Qiyamah, is more pertinent to you than anything else. So be concerned with you first and yourself, and that's what matters. And I will close with a story about that. Is one time the Prophet Muhammad, when he was in Medina, after the Battle of Khandaq, right, the Battle of the Ditch, it became very clear who the munafiqeen were, the hypocrites, that betrayed the Muslims and allowed the Quraysh to come from behind and kill many of the Sahaba, radiallahu anhum. And when that became clear who they were not even Muslim, they pretended to be Muslim and concealed kufr and were helping the mushrikeen against the Muslims. Then Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, he goes to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, Ya Rasulullah, it is now clear who the munafiqeen are, permit me to smite their necks, permit me to cut their heads off. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says to Umar, La Umar, aturidu an yuqal Muhammad yaqtul ashabahu? Do you want it to be said that Muhammad kills his own people, his own companions? And the word he uses is ashab. Do you want it to be said that Muhammad kills his own companions? They're not really his companions, but do you want people to think that? Right? So even the Prophet Muhammad would not kill people who, betrayed him because, he still was giving them da'wah and considered them there and wasn't going to allow that to happen. And obviously, so others wouldn't think that he was killing his own people and so forth. So, if that's munafiqeen, then what about the Muslims that were there and their differences? So, alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair. Sorry for the short answer.
Thank you. The saddest part of a gathering like this is we are limited by time. It would be delightful if we could just sit here for several hours and exchange views and learn from each other. But sadly, just for so long, and that's our time. So we have to cut this down. There were some very interesting questions that came up, which will perforce have to remain unanswered. One was for family counseling. It says, any advice for a Shia Sunni or a Sushi couple on how to deal with grandparents' pressure in raising their children in certain ways? And it's a fascinating topic. I think, forgive me for just giving the answer, but I think the bottom line is, are you bringing up your children to be good human beings? And if you're bringing your children up to be good human beings, then can there be a better way at all? And as long as we keep our eyes on that goal, I don't think we need to worry about which path or mini path or track they have to follow. They have to follow the path that God says we must follow. That's the end. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for coming. I wish we could have more time. It would really be fascinating. Thank you. Jazakallah khair.